I had just gotten my paycheck and decided to do my monthly shopping at that big retail store where employees wear blue shirts. You know the one? I usually avoid going there because of how chaotic it can get, but they had some great deals I couldn't pass up. I was going through my shopping list, picking up groceries and household items. I was wearing a red t-shirt and cargo shorts that day, nothing even remotely close to the store's uniform. I had been shopping for about an hour, carefully comparing prices and checking items off my list, when I heard that sound. That unmistakable ahem that entitled people make when they want attention. Without even turning around, I loudly announced that I didn't work there. I grabbed what I needed from the shelf and started walking away. That's when all hell broke loose. She started yelling at me about how rude I was, demanding that I come back because she was a customer. I shouted back that I was a customer too and told her to go screw herself, calling her an ignorant, ugly old bat. Look, I know some might think I was harsh, but I've dealt with entitled people my whole life. I was raised in a tourist town, and working in customer service through college taught me that if you give these people an inch, they'll take a mile. I learned to stand up for myself early on. She stood there, mouth hanging open, like someone had just told her the earth was flat. But then she spotted three men in business suits who had walked into our aisle, attracted by the shouting. She practically sprinted toward them, and suddenly the waterworks started. It was Oscar-worthy, really. Through fake tears, she made up a story about how I, who she thought was an employee, had been horrible to her. She claimed she had politely asked for help, but I had insulted and threatened her. She then demanded that they fire me immediately. The first man tried to explain that he didn't work there and couldn't fire me. She refused to believe him, screaming that he was lying and that he was a manager, again demanding that he fire me right away. She was screaming so loud that the men actually took a step back. The first man tried to calm her down, asking her to stop yelling. He started explaining again that he couldn't fire me because he didn't work there and wasn't what she thought he was. But he never got to finish his sentence. That's when she did something incredibly stupid. She whipped out a small container of pepper spray and blasted the poor guy right in the face. What happened next was like something out of an action movie. The other two men moved faster than I thought possible. They had her face down on the floor and in handcuffs before she could even realize what was happening. Turns out they were all police officers in plain clothes who had been doing some shopping themselves. One of the officers announced they were police and told her she was under arrest for assaulting an officer with a weapon. She just kept shrieking that they were lying about being cops and demanding that I be arrested instead for refusing to help her. She kept screaming and fighting as they waited for uniformed officers to arrive. When they did, it took two of them to drag her out of the store. I later found out she hit the floor so hard during the takedown that she lost a tooth. Can't say I felt bad about that. The officers asked if they needed my witness statement, but they had heard the whole exchange themselves. I left my contact information just in case and finished my shopping. She took a plea deal but still got hammered by the judge. 1 year and 1 day in prison, 5 years of parole, and 2,500 hours of community service. And get this, part of her community service was assigned at a customer service call center for a major retail chain. The officer she sprayed recovered completely, but I heard that Karen had a really rough time in prison. Apparently, her entitled attitude didn't go over well with her fellow inmates. Who would have thought? I'm a single dad living with my 7-year-old son, and this is the story of how our neighbor kept stealing our cat and tried to convince everyone it was hers. About a year ago, we used to live in a rough neighborhood, but we were lucky to have a sweet elderly neighbor who loved cats. That's how we met our kitten. She was too young to be away from her mother, but we found her in our tree. My son immediately fell in love with her and took amazing care of her, helping clean her fleas and feeding her. She's half Maine Coon, so she has these beautiful dark brown and black stripes. 7 months ago, we moved to a better neighborhood. Everything seemed perfect except for one thing: the family across the street. We soon discovered they were meth dealers. Not the dangerous gang type, but enough traffic to make us uncomfortable. Unfortunately, we'd already signed a year-long lease. A few weeks after moving in, our cat disappeared. Everyone helped search, including the neighbor's kids. 2 weeks later, I was sitting on my porch when I saw our cat walk out of their house. Weird, but I was just glad to have her back. In May, our cat got pregnant, and then she vanished again. During the search, the neighbor's kids, who often played at our house, casually mentioned that their cat had returned around the time ours disappeared. I went to talk to their mother. When I asked if she had seen our cat, she immediately became defensive, demanding to know why I would think their cat was actually ours. That reaction was suspicious, but I wasn't about to search a meth house. The next day, our cat showed up on our porch and had her kittens shortly after. In June, the husband went to jail for running a meth lab, and Karen was found unconscious from drugs. Their kids stayed with us for a few nights. When they went back home, our cat disappeared again. I walked across the street and demanded our cat back. Karen just slammed the door in my face, but an hour later, her kids brought our cat back. Last Monday, our cat didn't come home. The grandmother next door claimed she'd seen a dead cat a few streets over. I searched everywhere but couldn't find anything. We had to tell my son the devastating news. A week passed. Karen got ordered to rehab, and they were being evicted. During their yard sale, her kid came to our house and excitedly told my son they had gotten their kitten back and that she was going to have kittens. I went to their house and found our cat on their lawn. When Karen saw me, she immediately started yelling that it wasn't our cat. I checked for the distinct scars our cat had from a recent fight. They were all there. Our cat spotted her kittens and sprinted toward our house. The grandmother came rushing over, demanding to know what was happening. My son ran out crying, overjoyed to see that our cat was alive. I confronted them about how Karen had stolen our cat again, and how they had lied about her being dead. The kid tried to claim they had gotten the cat a year ago, but I pointed out 3 facts. The cat was female, not male as they claimed. This was definitely our cat that their kids had played with at our house, and their mother had been repeatedly stealing her. The grandmother denied that her grandkids had ever been to our house, claiming she had them the whole time. She tried to prove her point by showing me pictures, but they were of a completely different tan and light brown cat. I warned them that if I had to come get our cat again, I would get a restraining order. The grandmother tried to mock me, asking what I thought I could tell the police, that someone was feeding our cat. Later that night, a police officer showed up at our door with Karen and her mother. He explained that they were claiming I had stolen their cat. I showed him our cat with her kittens, and he compared it to their picture. He could clearly see it wasn't the same cat. I made sure to inform him about Karen's drug dealing history and her husband being in prison. The officer said he was only there about the cat complaint, which was obviously unfounded, and went to have a word with them. We've since kept all windows and doors shut, and my son is extra careful not to let any cats out. Last I heard, Karen failed her drug test and got sent to prison too. The grandmother moved away shortly after, probably from embarrassment. At least we got our happy ending. Our cat is safe at home where she belongs. I've been married for 8 years now, and my wife has always been the type to brush off my suggestions when it comes to planning events. Don't get me wrong, she's amazing at organizing things, but sometimes she can be a bit stubborn. I've learned to just let her learn things the hard way, which usually leads to some pretty entertaining situations. Last weekend was our daughter's 7th birthday, and we decided to host it at this cute little arts and crafts workshop downtown. Our daughter's been really into painting lately, so it seemed perfect. The plan was simple: have the kids do some crafts, eat pizza and cake, then finish up with more crafts. What could go wrong? We got to the workshop early to set everything up for the 11 a.m. start. While my wife was chatting with the employees about the schedule, I overheard them mention that the kids would paint for about 30 to 45 minutes before breaking for pizza. Then they'd do the second part of their crafts around 12:30 and have cake around 1 p.m. Something clicked in my head immediately. My wife had scheduled the pizza pickup for 12 p.m., which didn't quite add up with the timeline. I suggested to my wife that we should call the pizza place to move up the pickup time to 11:30. She brushed me off, telling me I was stressing over nothing and to just leave it alone. Having chaperoned enough first grade field trips, I knew exactly what was coming. First graders are like tiny nuclear reactors of energy, and when they're hungry, let's just say it gets interesting. 11:30 rolls around, and sure enough, the kids are wrapping up their first activity. My wife told me I should go get the pizzas now. I headed out to the supermarket, which was a good 10 minutes away. Of course, because the universe has a sense of humor, the place was absolutely packed. The pizzas weren't ready until 11:45, and then I still had to pay and drive back. At 11:55, my wife called in a panic. She demanded to know where I was and where the pizzas were. I reminded her that she had put the pizza order in for 12 p.m. She frantically told me to hurry because the kids were starving. I couldn't resist reminding her how she told me not to stress over this earlier. Back at the workshop, it was exactly the scene I'd imagined. 20 first graders all bouncing off the walls with hunger, while my wife tried to maintain order. The poor workshop employees were doing their best to keep the kids entertained, but you can only do so much with hangry 7-year-olds. When I walked in with the pizzas, you'd think I was carrying gold. The kids descended on them like a swarm of locusts, and within minutes, there was barely a crumb left. The rest of the party went smoothly. The kids finished their crafts, demolished the cake and cupcakes, and left happy with their creations. On the drive home, my wife was exhausted. She started telling me about the chaos that erupted after I left. Kids chanting, "We want pizza," some nearly crying from hunger, and her trying to distract them with games that absolutely no one was interested in playing. I couldn't resist using her own words against her, telling her not to worry and that she was stressing over nothing. The look she gave me could have melted steel, but I saw the corner of her mouth twitch into a slight smile. That evening, after our daughter had gone to bed, my wife was reviewing her party planning notebook. Yes, she keeps one. She admitted that maybe we should schedule the food delivery 30 minutes earlier than we think we need it next time. I playfully asked her what made her come to that conclusion. She told me to shut up and threw a couch pillow at my head, but we both ended up laughing about it. The next day, she even added a new rule to her party planning notebook. Always listen to your husband about food timing. I'm having that page framed. Let me tell you about something that happened to me around 20 years ago. My best friend and I had been inseparable since middle school. We did everything together, shared our first beers, covered for each other when we snuck out as teenagers, even ended up at the same college. He was the kind of friend who'd drop everything at 3 a.m. if you needed help. The kind who knew exactly what to say when life got rough. 4 months before this story takes place, he was killed in a convenience store robbery. Wrong place, wrong time. The robber was tweaking on something and got spooked. My friend was just there buying milk for his morning coffee. It took me weeks just to process that he was gone. His parents asked me to speak at his memorial service, and I spent days trying to write something that could do justice to 20 years of friendship. How do you sum up a person's entire life in a 5-minute speech? The day of the memorial service was harder than I expected. The room was packed. He had touched so many lives. One by one, people got up to share their memories. Each story felt like reopening a wound. Halfway through, I needed air. The emotions were suffocating me. There was a bar right next to the event room. I slipped out, found an empty stool, and ordered a whiskey neat. The bartender gave me that knowing look, the one that says they've seen plenty of people drinking to cope with loss. I was staring into my glass, replaying memories in my head, when this guy 2 stools down decided to speak up. He called out to me with an annoyingly cheerful voice, asking why I looked so glum and telling me to smile. I looked at him, not really believing what I was hearing. He had that smug expression some men get when they think they're being charming. I asked him to repeat himself. He doubled down, saying I looked like someone had died and that life was too short to be so serious. He insisted again that I should smile. The sheer audacity of this guy. I turned to face him directly and told him that someone actually had died, my best friend of 20 years. I explained that I was here for his memorial service right next door, and that he had been shot dead in a robbery 4 months ago. With bitter sarcasm, I invited him to tell me more about how I should smile. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened and closed a few times, but no words came out. The people sitting nearby who had overheard went dead silent. He stammered out an apology, saying he didn't know. I cut him off, acknowledging that, of course, he didn't know, which was exactly why he shouldn't go around telling strangers how to feel or what to do with their faces. He started stammering out more apologies, but I wasn't done. I asked him if he made a habit of telling random women to smile, if it usually worked out well for him, and if it made him feel good about himself. The bartender, who had been watching this whole exchange, stepped in and suggested to the man that it was time for him to close out his tab. The guy threw some money on the bar and practically ran out. The bartender slid a fresh drink in front of me, telling me this one was on the house. He admitted that he'd wanted to say something like that to guys like him for years. I went back to the memorial service feeling a bit lighter. Maybe it was the whiskey, or maybe it was the small satisfaction of knowing that at least one guy might think twice before telling another woman to smile. My friend would have loved that story. He always did enjoy when entitled people got put in their place. Later, as I was leaving, I saw that same guy in the parking lot. He caught my eye and quickly looked away, practically diving into his car. But before he could escape, an elderly woman who had been at the bar earlier stopped him. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught bits and pieces as she gave him an earful about respect and common decency. She was apparently a regular at the bar and had seen too many men pull the same stunt over the years. The guy looked absolutely mortified as this tiny woman, who couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall, lectured him in the middle of the parking lot. Several people stopped to watch, some even nodding in agreement. When she finally finished, he practically sprinted to his car, his face as red as a tomato. The elderly woman caught my eye and gave me a knowing wink before heading back inside. My friend would have absolutely loved this part too. He always said karma had a way of coming full circle, and watching this guy get schooled by a grandmother in a parking lot felt like the universe agreeing with him. I'd like to think he learned something that day.